welcome to day 12 of the potato challenge. So I thought today, although it's not quite a halfway point, might be a good time to talk about how to cook potatoes. So first things first, whenever I make a potato, if I'm peeling a potato, which I kind of try not to because I think the skin is really good for you, so I usually do eat the skin, but if I'm going to peel a potato, I don't worry about scrubbing it like super lots. I'll wash it after I've peeled it because obviously the skin's usually dirty, but if I'm going to cook it with the skin on, I always scrub it, like for real scrub. This is a heavy duty scrubbing brush. All of my potatoes get this treatment. Excuse me. I need to get a drink. Okay, sorry about that. Needed some water. Oh my goodness. So yeah, clean a potato really good. Oftentimes, actually, if I have a sink of hot soapy water, I'll just toss the potatoes in and scrub them and then rinse them off really well. I don't think soap hurts anything. I clean all of my fruits and vegetables with hot soapy water for the most part. Not always, but if I have some hot soapy water handy, I do. So first things first, let's talk about mashed potatoes. So mashed potatoes work best with your potatoes that are going to end up creamy. So I would highly suggest, if you're going to make mashed potatoes, that you use baby red potatoes or Yukon Gold potatoes or almost any type of sweet potato. So just a regular, average, normal, find at the store sweet potato, these aren't super creamy when you mash them, but if that's all you can find, good enough, no problem. Just about any of the other sweet potatoes end up being creamier though. So pick a different type of sweet potato than you've tried before and try something new. But if you wanted to make creamy mashed potatoes, definitely start out with something like a Yukon Gold or some of the baby red potatoes. Those are really the best for mashed potatoes. So what I have learned about mashed potatoes, and I have made them in several different ways now, the absolute best way is tried and true. Boil some water, put your potatoes in it, let them boil, and then mash them. So I've tried making mashed potatoes out of potatoes that I've put in the microwave. I've tried making mashed potatoes out of ones I've put in an Instant Pot. I've made mashed potatoes out of ones I've baked in the oven, and none of it works as well as boiling them. So mashed potatoes equals boiling, okay guys? But one thing that you do want to think about, so for this challenge I'm trying to do less fat, obviously. So normally I would make mashed potatoes with unsweetened soy milk. Well, what I've been doing is when you boil the mashed potatoes, save some of the water that you drain off of the potatoes. Now, to be honest with you, I just don't drain all the water and mash the potatoes without draining all the water. But if you're not used to doing it that way, I would highly suggest just drain all the water into something, and then you can pour back into the potatoes the amount of water that you need. So that water is really starchy, and it makes it super creamy, like for real. So then you could put in what you want to put in from there. So if you decided you wanted it to be garlicky, just dump in some garlic. If you wanted it to be more salty, if that's something you were going for, you could put some bouillon in it at that point. If you wanted it to be cheesy, you could put some nooch in it. There's lots of things that you can put in there to make a mashed potato a little bit more, have a little more pizzazz than just a super bland mashed potato. And one other thing that I have done when I'm cooking potatoes, making mashed potatoes, and it works really well, if you're going to make smashed potatoes rather than mashed potatoes, so you're just going to roughly mash them so you have some chunks left in there, and that works best when you're leaving the skin on, is to go ahead and put the potatoes in your boiling water, but at the same time add a chopped onion in there. So the onion could cook the same amount of time as the potatoes cook, which isn't that long, guys. I mean, less than 12 minutes for sure. Depending on the potato and the size chunk that you cut it into. Like if you cut a potato into quarters, yeah, it's going to take longer to boil than if you chopped it into little tiny pieces. So keep that in mind. But if you put the onion right in there with the potato and let it cook with the potato, and then when you go to smash it, it incorporates itself right into the potatoes, toss some garlic in there, and you're good to go. It's delicious. Highly recommend that. But mashed potatoes, you kind of need to boil them. That's just the way it goes. Hash browns. So I have made hash browns in multiple different methods now, and if you're using a griddle, you don't have to use oil, but they turn out way better. So I don't do oil. Actually, my family, we don't do oil. So we pretty much don't griddle hash browns anymore because they just don't quite turn out right. They're okay, but they're not great. So recently I tried, and you guys saw this on one of my videos, I tried putting them in the waffle maker. And if you put them in the waffle maker very, very thin, like just a very thin layer, that turns out okay. They turn out to be a nice crispy hash brown. They taste good. That worked. Very time consuming because it takes about 10 minutes, maybe 8 minutes per batch, and you've only got 4 little squares of hash browns out of that. So kind of time consuming, but if you want something that looks cute and pretty and your kids might think is fun, totally would recommend that. However, I am now absolutely sold on doing hash browns in the oven. So you take a tray, I think they're 9 by 13, 11 by 13, whatever size tray you have for your oven, and put down a silicone baking mat. If you don't have one, I'd kind of recommend you get one, to be honest with you. It's nice to not have to use a piece of parchment paper and throw it away all the time, but if you don't, that's fine. Use parchment paper, whatever. And then you just put your mashed potatoes, don't do that. You put your hash browns that you've ground or grated onto the tray and put it in about a fairly thin layer, to be honest with you. But you cover the entire tray. And do that with 2 trays. And what I do is I put 1 tray on the top rack, all the way up as high as it goes, and 1 on the bottom rack, all the way as down as low as it goes. And I cook them that way for 15 minutes. Take them out and turn them around and switch trays, and then put them in for another 10 minutes. And then depending upon how thick you made them, they may need more time. So I have found that I put them in for another 15 minutes, typically switch them around again, turn the trays around again. Maybe your oven doesn't need that, but mine does. And it works out great. And I have these really nice crispy hash browns. I didn't flip them, but because I baked them on the bottom rack and on the top rack, they got crispy on the top and on the bottom. Worked out really well. And it was tasty. It tasted really good. And they were crispy, and I do have to say I did make hash browns. You guys maybe saw this. I did make hash browns where I had put onions in there. That was a bad idea because it was just too much moisture. So the hash browns ended up staying gooey, which I'm not a big fan. So yeah, I would totally recommend if you're going to do hash browns, do them in the oven. They're very hands-off. I mean, you grate the potato, put them on the tray, and then you just have to turn them a couple of times. Excuse me, I need another drink. I'm not sick. I'm not. But I am very itchy and tickly today. Yuck. Anyways, whatever. Okay, so that's the extent for hash browns. I like them in the oven, and I really do think it's time consuming, or time saving, not consuming, saving, because you actually end up with a whole bunch of hash browns that way. And it took you 40 minutes, but you didn't end up really spending any time doing anything with them other than turning the trays around. So you could be cooking other things or doing your laundry or whatever. French fries. So my husband has made French fries for the kids for a long time. We used to make them in the deep fat fryer. Okay, once in a while, we'll still do that. Once in a very great while, like maybe twice a year, because that's a lot of oil and that's really bad for you. So usually what my husband makes are, I guess you would term them steak fries or home fries, where you just make them into slices so they're bigger and fat and they kind of have a wedge to them. So maybe wedge fries, whatever you guys call them. So he would just line trays with those and put them in the oven and bake them. And it takes forever, like forever. And they're not necessarily always crispy. It doesn't work out the greatest. But it is an option. So if that's your option, you don't have any other way of cooking a French fry, I wouldn't recommend a deep fat fryer, although they taste delicious that way. They're just really super unhealthy. We don't spray them when we put them in the oven. We don't spray them with oil or brush them with oil or anything like that. They don't need it. You don't need to do that. If you did want to salt them, doing that like this, lightly before you put them in the oven, is a good option, because if you want them to have some flavor on them when they're still moist from having cut them, is the best time to get the salt on them. If you do it when they come out of the oven, they're kind of dry and crusty on the outside, and it doesn't really work very well. But if you're going to dip them in ketchup, which has some salt in it anyway, skip that entirely. You don't need to worry about that. What we use is the air fryer, and it works really well. So take a French fry, or take a potato rather, and cut it into the home fries shape that you normally would cut it into. A normal potato gets you about 16 of those, I believe. Pretty sure. Maybe 8. I don't remember right now. Anyway, however many slices you get out of it, put them on a plate of some sort that's microwavable and put it in the microwave for 5 minutes. Just load the plate full and put it in there for 5 minutes. Don't try not to have them overlapping or anything. When you take them out, they're still going to be hard. They're not cooked yet, but they are well on their way to being air fryer friendly at that point. So then I will line the bottom of an air fryer basket that has been getting hot, and I usually just do it at 400 degrees. I let it get hot, and then I just toss them all in there. Again, try not to let them overlap, but that basket is hot, so please be careful. And I put them in there for, I believe it's 8 minutes. So typically I'll put them in there for a few minutes, pull the basket out, shake them around a little bit, put it back in there. Usually 8 minutes will take care of it. Sometimes if you've got a stubborn potato, it takes up to 11 minutes. Usually it doesn't take that long. So the only problem with doing it that way is that you essentially make one potato at a time. I've tried putting like metal racks in my in my air fryer, so I could do a layer of potatoes and then a rack and a layer of potatoes. And that doesn't really work out that great. You certainly can't shake it. You can't move them around. It just doesn't work that great. So that's the problem if you've got 7 people in your family like I do, and pretty much your kids are going to eat at least a potato's worth of fries a piece, at least. That takes a while. So best method for making French fries, I'm still going to stick with the air fryer, even though we've got a really big air fryer, so you can make more than one potato. You can make about a potato and a half in there at a time. I would highly recommend it if you've got more than a couple people in your house, that you get the biggest air fryer you can find. I do not have the money on hand to go and purchase a Breville, what are they called? I'm not sure what the technical name of it, but the Breville smart oven countertop thing that actually is an air fryer as well. I can't afford that. It's like $400. So, well, I could afford that if I chose to make that a priority. I'm not choosing to make that a priority. I can make French fries in the air fryer, and the kids just have to eat slower. So, anyways, I would recommend if you're going to do French fries to go ahead and do it in the air fryer. Works out really well. Baked potatoes. Here's a skinny on baked potatoes, guys. You don't have to put them in the oven for 2 hours. For real. So, russet potatoes, those work great. I'm going to give you a secret here in a second. These purple sweet potatoes that are white on the inside, these will work really, really well. Your little Yukon Golds, those work great. No, not these. Okay, maybe that's it for now. Okay, so take those type of potatoes and skin them if you want to. You don't need to. Clean them really well and put them in your Instant Pot. Now, if you don't have an air fryer, not a big deal. If you don't have an Instant Pot, kind of a big deal. You need one of those, guys, like for real. So I use my Instant Pot like all the time. Absolutely love the thing. But for making baked potatoes, it is the bomb. So you have your Instant Pot, and I recommend the Instant Pot, not the other brands, because it has the metal container that goes on the inside, so you can actually get in it and scrub it and clean it. Whereas with the ones that have the non-stick coating on it, you can't clean those. Like, you cannot clean those because they get stuff stuck on them, and you can't scrub it because otherwise you're gonna take the coating off, and then you can't use them anymore. So, Instant Pot. So scrub your potatoes. You put this metal rack that comes with it in there, and then you put the potatoes on top of that. And you guys have seen me. I have made an 8-quart Instant Pot full of potatoes, and it doesn't take that long. So you put that in there. You put water up to the rack, not over the rack, but up to the rack, which is about a cup of water, somewhere around in that range. And then you just put your potatoes in there, and you will bake them for like, I did mine for 12 minutes, I think. I think my husband's done them for as little as 8 or 10, depending on if they're small. I've done them for 15 to 20. I don't know that it makes too much difference. You just want them to be cooked for real. So if you have a bigger potato, like you've got a big old honking potato, you're gonna do that for 15 to 20 minutes. If you've got, some of these, 7 or 8 minutes is probably gonna be just fine. But I mean, literally, guys, it takes a few minutes, maybe up to 10 minutes at most, for the pressure to come up, for the Instant Pot to come up to pressure, and then the amount of time that you cooked it for, 7 to 20 minutes, somewhere in that range, and then you just let it release on its own. If you wanted to, you could do the instant release. You could put a paper towel over the thing and turn it, and steam goes everywhere. Okay, you could do that. Just leave it alone. It will eventually come down to pressure on its own, and then you'll have baked potatoes. Totally recommend that. That is the way to make a baked potato for real. However, it doesn't work on all potatoes. I have found this, and it was kind of distressing. I did not know this. So if you have a potato that is meant to be really sweet. Like it's obviously sweet potato, not a regular potato, but you have a potato that you really are expecting it to be a super sweet potato, I wouldn't do it in the Instant Pot. I would do it on a lower temperature, maybe 350, 325 in the oven for a longer amount of time, maybe up to 2 hours. And the reason that is, my yummy, okay, so there's two different, you can get, this is the same potato, guys, for real. Is that not ridiculous? That's the same potato. That is an Okinawa or a Japanese sweet potato. This is the one that's purple on the inside. They are delicious. Run to your nearest Asian store and buy some of these guys. For real, they're super, super good. This one is a Hana sweet potato, or I think it's called a Hana yam, actually. It's this light colored skin on the outside and it's white on the inside, or very light colored on the inside as well. Regular sweet potato, not super exciting. Those need to be baked in the oven. They just don't taste the same in the Instant Pot, I'm sorry to say. Maybe if you put them in the Instant Pot for a really long time, I don't know. I really don't know. But they need to be baked in the oven as far as I'm concerned. So if I'm going to make a Japanese sweet potato in the oven, bake one, I'm going to put it in the oven. Absolutely, hands down. It just is that much sweeter. Would highly recommend that you guys do that. So baking regular potatoes, Instant Pot all the way, super easy. Supper ready in less than an hour, fast. Actually, probably supper ready in like 40 minutes. But otherwise, if it's going to be something that you want to have super sweet, like a Hana yam or the Japanese sweet potatoes, bake them in the oven. Okay, soups. I'm going to hands down say that the way that I make soup is not necessarily the best way to make soup. So I oftentimes will boil stuff on the stove and just let it go. No, don't do that. Put everything you want to have in your soup in the crock pot, except for maybe something that you want at the end, like some scallions or something along those lines. Or you already have cooked beans, so you just need to put them in at the end, or corn or something like that that's already cooked. You really don't need it to sit in the crock pot for 8 hours. Use your crock pot. Or if you want to, use your Instant Pot as a crock pot. It works that way too. But seriously, use a crock pot. So much easier, so much more hands off. All you do is chop everything and put it in there, put the liquid in, and you're good to go. Push the button, go to work, come home 8 hours, 9 hours later, and you've got supper ready. You know, easy. So that's the way I would recommend making soup. I do it on the stove a lot, but oftentimes that's just because the recipe that I am using says to do it on the stove, so I'll just try it that way, because I try new recipes all the time, so I'll just try it that way. If it's a recipe that I really like and I'm going to make again, I probably will convert it over to my crock pot, just because it's so much easier to do that. So that's a skinny on potatoes. Methods for cooking potatoes. Sorry this went a little bit long. I didn't think it was going to be this much chitter chatter, but got your way to make mashed potatoes, way to make hash browns, way to make french fries, way to make baked potatoes, and way to make soups with potatoes. If I've glaringly forgotten something, which I might have, as you guys know, potatoes aren't my favorite thing in the world. I like sweet potatoes. Potatoes are, I could live without them, to be honest with you. But the challenge is going, okay, I actually am able to eat, and it's not been a problem. But I just wanted to share with you guys some of the best ways that I think to cook potatoes. And like I said, if you're going to make mashed potatoes, boil them. If you're going to make hash browns, consider doing it in the oven. It works out really well. If you're going to make french fries, the air fryer really, really works, and it really works well. Baked potatoes, Instant Pot. I would vote for it hands down, unless you're going to cook one of those sweet potatoes that needs to be super sweet. And soups are in the crock pot. Super easy. Make your life easy, guys. So that's it for me for the day. Hope you guys found this even remotely helpful. And I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye.